Hello everyone, Darren here, and welcome to the top of the sale for the Steam Summer Sale in 2021. Every single game featured on this list is at a brand new historical low price, meaning that it's the first time that these games have ever been this cheap on Steam. This list is then sorted by the release year and then by how deep the discount is. If the game is available on Xbox Game Pass, you'll see a little Game Pass icon in the top right just to keep you informed. Many games that aren't going to feature in this list were already featured in my previous sale video for Winter 2020 because their prices have not gotten any lower since then, so please consider checking out that video for even more deals that are still relevant today. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Skillshare offers classes ranging from creative writing, graphic design, video editing, and even game development. I've used it personally when I wanted to learn more advanced techniques for video editing. I took the class Animating with Ease in After Effects by Jake Bartlett, which was excellent because the class also provided art assets and project files, which are huge time savers. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning that there's no ads and they're always launching new premium classes, workshops, and live classes. The first 1,000 of my viewers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can explore your creativity. Thank you to Skillshare. First up, I just have 4 games from 2021 that I wanted to mention before getting to the really big discounts for the games of 2020. To start off, we have NieR Replicant version 1.22474487139, the remastered and upgraded prequel to NieR Automata. Replicant is an action RPG with hack-and-slash style combat centered around a young protagonist who sets out to save his sister Yona, who has fallen terminally ill to the Black Scrawl. Despite being a reimagined prequel, fans have praised the game for its building on the combat of Automata, while retaining much of the feel and atmosphere of the original. This is in no small part thanks to the game's phenomenal soundtrack. Next, we have the recently released Temple Crawler Phantom Abyss at 20% off. A game that throws players into procedurally generated temples where they must retrieve ancient relics while utilizing parkour-style movement to avoid traps and dangerous guardians. Failed attempts create phantoms that alert players to the pitfalls of others' mistakes and successes. Released into early access, the team expect the game to launch fully in about 1 year, planning to add more rooms, traps, whips, and other additional gameplay based on feedback. Next up, we have Total War Rome Remastered at 20% off. Originally released back in 2004, Rome was the first big success for developer Creative Assembly, launching the Total War franchise into becoming a staple of the PC gaming platform. Updated now with 4K visuals, workshop support, and several quality of life improvements, including additional optional features for mechanics on the campaign, the game has been met with mixed reviews from fans, mostly related to the UI and the AI of the game. And lastly, for our 2021 discounts, we have another remaster, and that's Mass Effect Legendary Edition at 17% off. The Legendary Edition includes Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, as well as almost every available single-player DLC released for the games, all remastered and optimized for 4K Ultra HD. Largely just a coat of new paint, the gameplay of the originals remains pretty much intact, with some additional control improvements specifically for the first game. For anyone who doesn't know, Mass Effect is a third-person RPG with cover-based shooting set in a rich and detailed universe where your decisions have profound consequences, except for the very end. Okay, now moving to 2020, the discounts are going to get a lot bigger here. First up, we have Iron Harvest, an alternate history post-World War I RTS game with rudimentary mech combat. Very much utilizing similar gameplay to Company of Heroes, the game also features a rich single-player campaign as well as co-op and multiplayer. Considered to have quite a strong offering in terms of its single-player, the multiplayer has proved divisive amongst players, earning the game a mixed reputation. The major complaints are centered around the limited depth when it comes to units and sparse rosters between the 4 factions. I decided to include this anyway because despite its mixed reviews, at 75% off it seems much more reasonable if you just want an old-school RTS campaign. Next, we have Dragon Ball Z Kakarot at 67% off. Kakarot is an open-world RPG where you relive the story of Goku and the most iconic events from the saga, complete with epic fights over large, destructible battlefields. You'll fight, fish, eat, and train with iconic characters from DBZ, where you'll also find that the lore is further expanded with side quests and characters that have never been seen before in the series. While fans have praised the combat and the overall attention to detail for the story, many have criticized its RPG mechanics, which feel a little bit clunky and are full of repetitive side quests. Next up, we have Star Wars Squadrons at 63% off. People often forget that Squadrons has a short but good single-player campaign that roughly lasts about 8 hours, and at 63% off, it makes it all the more enticing for those not interested in the multiplayer. It's worth mentioning VR is not required to play the game either. Squadrons is exclusively a dogfighting game reminiscent of Battlefront 2's dogfights, but with a bit more depth, a slightly bigger scale, and many more game modes. That said, the multiplayer community for the game has largely died away, only to be revived occasionally during the odd sale or free weekend. Next up, we have BPM, Bullets Per Minute, at 55% off. BPM is a rhythm action FPS roguelike, where you shoot, jump, and dodge to the beat of the game's soundtrack. Choosing from one of 10 unique characters, you'll jump into a randomly generated dungeon with a varying arsenal of weaponry, scouting for pickups and upgrades, and fighting powerful bosses that keep you in time with the music. One missed shot could mean your death in this fast-paced FPS. Completely switching gears now, we have Football Manager 2021 at 50% off. FM21 is one of the highest rated entries into the series thus far, and one of the most played games on Steam overall, with a typical concurrent player base of around 60,000 players. One of the biggest new features to make its way into FM21 is the XG system, or expected goals, which measures the quality of the chances for a team when it comes to scoring. What this means is that you get far more accurate results reflecting your strategies with less luck or chance involved. There's also new quick chats with your players, gestures, recruitment meetings, improved UI for match day, and lots of quality of life improvements. So get out there and score the goal. Am I right? Sports. Moving on now to Detroit Become Human at 50% off. Previously a PlayStation exclusive, then later an Epic Games Store exclusive on PC, Detroit eventually made its way to Steam in mid-2020 and is largely considered Quantic Dream's best game to date. It's a story-driven detective game set in the near future where you play as several android characters who are all struggling with the concept of what it means to be alive and whether or not they are sentient. With wildly different outcomes for any given scenario, your choices have deep consequence and can even lead to protagonists being killed off early, with the story still progressing. While you do have some freedom to move around in a certain level, this is largely a sort of linear adventure game where you may or may not find some clues that are going to inform your choices that will ultimately decide your fate. Next up, we have Phoenix Point Year 1 Edition at 50% off. Originally kickstarted and then turned Epic exclusive, the game eventually came to Steam at the end of last year to mixed reviews. The game is basically XCOM but with less RNG due to its manual aim system and its cone-based Overwatch. It also features boss fights, vehicles, and adaptive missions where the AI will attempt to counter your strengths over time. Despite not reviewing well, I actually really enjoyed this game personally, and I'd recommend it at this new low price. Ultimately, XCOM is probably better, but this is just a great alternative if you're looking for more games in the genre. Next, we have Zombie Army 4 Dead War. From the makers of the Sniper Elite franchise comes another entry into their ridiculous spin-off franchise, Zombie Army. After a year exclusivity on the Epic Games Store, it arrives now to Steam with a large 40% discount. Zombie Army sets the stage for a 1-to-4 player co-op campaign spread across 1940s Italy, complete with a new and expanded horde mode, new elemental weapons, and the series' iconic X-ray bullet cam and ballistics. Ballistics? Yeah? It kind of works. Continuing our theme of ridiculous games, next we have Man-Eater, which also originally released on the Epic Games Store in 2020. It's made its way to Steam last month and has already slashed its price with a 40% discount. Despite seeming like a bit of a gimmick, the game is actually quite highly rated both critically and in terms of user reviews. Man-Eater is an open-world shark PG. That's right, shark PG. That one will definitely catch on, in which you play as a lone bull shark who massacres and devours an endless array of humans and wildlife in order to evolve rapidly and become even more destructive. Accompanied by an extremely awkward narrator, the game takes place over a full narrative and story-based campaign set against the backdrop of a reality TV show. Next we have Mafia Definitive Edition at 40% off. Originally made in 2002, this 2020 remake keeps the original story of the game, but expands on it with new missions and updated gameplay with additions like motorcycles, taxi missions, racing, and modern gunplay that was carried over from Mafia 3. Released to generally positive reviews, it's worth noting that instability and frame rate issues are still a lead cause of some of the negative reviews even recently. The story is set in the fictional city of Lost Haven in 1930s America during the final years of the Prohibition era. You play as Tommy Angelo, an impoverished taxi driver who gets welcomed into the Salieri family after helping two of their members escape a gunfight. From there, racketeering, corruption, and family feuds takes over Tommy's life and sets the stage for the game's decade-long story. Next up, we have the Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope, our first horror game on the list. The second in a planned series of 8 games from Supermassive, Little Hope tells its own standalone story of 4 college students isolated in a very Silent Hill-esque town, where nightmarish creatures plague the group with terrifying visions of the past. A rather unrepresented and unique feature of the game is that it can actually be played online with a friend or offline with up to 5 friends, where your characters will routinely be split up and played off of one another, and sometimes even be shown different things from the same area to truly confuse and terrify one another. Unfortunately, mixed reviews point to numerous bugs and not enough player agency in the game to shape your own outcome. On a lighter note, we have Spelunky 2, the second highest rated game in this list at 97% positive user reviews and clocking in at 30% off. Spelunky 2 really just builds on the winning formula of its predecessor, offering more areas, characters, traps, and items with new branching paths and multi-layered levels that add a third dimension to the classic 2D platforming. Animals can be tamed, liquid physics create new challenges, and the game can be played in multiplayer or co-op for some extra chaotic fun. Now, despite its cute art style, the game is notoriously challenging, with a steep learning curve in some of those earlier levels that can really take a bit of getting used to. Typically though, once you start, the game gets its hooks into you and you'll want just one more run. Speaking of one more run, we have Hades, another roguelike, and this time the #1 rated game in this list at a whopping 98% positive, with over 120,000 reviews, and now with a 30% discount. After numerous Game of the Year awards, I'm sure many people are already aware of what Hades is: a fast action RPG roguelike dungeon crawler set in the beautiful underworld of Greek mythology. With fully voiced dialogue that reacts to your performance to incredible detail, you don't so much feel like you're running through the same encounters, but instead feel like you're building up your own story and patching together your weird, dysfunctional family. Next, we have the last game in our 2020 list, and it's the mega hit Phasmophobia at 15% off. Still in early access, Phasmophobia has garnered over 230,000 positive reviews on Steam, mostly due to its unique co-op-centered approach to psychological horror. You and up to 4 friends take the role of a team of paranormal investigators tasked with gathering as much evidence of paranormal activity as you can. With VR support and voice recognition, you can really place yourself into the scene and literally talk to the ghosts through Ouija boards and spirit boxes, creating a uniquely immersive experience. Now, pushing back into the games from 2019, we have got even bigger discounts across the board. Again, these are all brand new, historical low prices for these games. They've never been cheaper, at least not on Steam. Because these are slightly older, I'm going to try and go through them a bit quicker, as the chances of you knowing what they are is already pretty high. First up, we have Greedfall at 70% off. Greedfall is an open-world RPG with a nod to old-school RPGs where choices and a multitude of different approaches matter. Create your character, customize appearance, choose abilities, spells, skills, and then complete quests through combat, diplomacy, deception, or stealth. Not quite the AAA level of something like maybe The Witcher or Dragon Age. You can feel a little bit rough around the edges, but at 70% off, this game more than makes up for it with a great story, characters, and world building. Next up, we have The Outer Worlds at 60% off. The Outer Worlds is an open-world RPG with lots of branching stories and quests that allow for a multitude of different outcomes. Your character can both react to what they're good and bad at, developing traits that make you vulnerable in some places for benefits in others. Set in the farthest edges of the galaxy, a mega corporation seeks to bury its secrets about missing colonists, and instead leaves a wake of hostile alien creatures behind when it attempts to terraform planets. Next, we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order at 60% off and 90% positive ratings, making it one of the highest rated Star Wars games in the last few years, though obviously there hasn't really been that much competition in that category. Generally described as Star Wars meets Uncharted, it's a third-person action-adventure game with an emphasis on climbing. Combat is a pretty standard affair with striking, parrying, and dodging, but it's paired with force abilities that you're going to unlock through skill trees over time, which keeps combat interesting and allows you to then come back and access new areas. The story takes place 5 years after Episode 3 as the Empire sends Inquisitors after the remnants of the Jedi Order. Next up, we have Barotrauma at 60% off, another sort of indie co-op horror survival game, this time 2D and set in a submarine in space. With multiplayer of up to 16 players and bots if you've got no friends, Barotrauma delivers a frantic and chaotic experience as you're going to work together to navigate the waters of Europa, plug leaks, fend off invaders, and keep the submarine working in hazardous and sometimes hilariously hopeless conditions. Next up, we have Planet Zoo at 55% off. Planet Zoo is more of a creation tool than a zoo management game. Frontier Development's engine is incredibly flexible at terraforming the land and creating unique environments and habitats for a multitude of animals, which can now be expanded upon with a series of DLCs, which are also on sale around 30% each. With workshop support, you can actually import prefabs of others' creations and then edit them or build upon them to make it your own. When it comes to the management aspect, animals have a great amount of depth on them, but there isn't much challenge in running a successful zoo. Speaking of challenge, next we have Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice at 50% off. From the creators of Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, Sekiro is a punishing third-person action-adventure game set in a reimagined 16th century Japan. Compared to its predecessors, Sekiro removes the character creator, stat upgrades, and multiplayer, but it adds gear upgrading and skill trees in its place. When it comes to enemy encounters, instead of slowly taking down a health bar, you instead attack their posture and balance, creating an opening for that one-hit kill. Traversal is also considered much faster with a grappling hook that adds some verticality, one of Steam's highest rated games. Next up is Transport Fever 2 at 50% off. TF2 is a logistics game where by combining transport routes you deliver goods needed to help cities grow and thrive and then provide you with more income. TF2 has 3 campaigns that range from the 1850s to the modern day with their own retelling of historical events. It features logistics on land, sea and air, has robust map editing and mod support, and a total of over 200 vehicles. And lastly, I just have 4 more rapid fire games to end. Frostpunk at 67% off. Frostpunk is a unique radial city builder / survival game where you'll struggle to build an alternate history 19th century colony while rapid climate change plunges the Earth into a new ice age. Forza Horizon 4 at 50% off, set in a fictionalized Great Britain with seasons that change on a weekly basis in real time. Forza Horizon 4 is an open world, shared sandbox racing game. With a huge amount of variety in vehicle types, races, and challenges, Horizon 4 has had another surge in popularity since coming to Steam and the announcement of its sequel. Titanfall 2 at 80% off. Hugely praised for its single-player campaign, you play as an aspirational Titan pilot named Jack Cooper. Jack is sent to the frontier where mining corporations are vying for control of resources by employing private militaries to do their dirty work. And lastly, we have Battlefield 4, also at 80% off, revitalized by the announcement of Battlefield 2042. The servers hit capacity a few weeks ago and have steadily had a rising player base since then. Crossplay enabled through EA Desktop, players from Steam, Origin, and Game Pass all combined together to give this game a welcome resurgence ahead of 2042. And that's it for my top of the sale for summer 2021. If you got any feedback regarding the format of this video, please let me know and I'll try to improve if I can ahead of the next sale. In future, I hope to be a bit more timely with it, but my PC was recently having some issues which caused some delays. Also, this time around, I went purely for games that had never been this same price before. This is the cheapest that they've ever been, and it was the first time they'd ever been this cheap. I'd be interested to know if people found that to be useful information. Thanks again for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like and share with a friend so I can do more seasonal sale videos. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, thank you very much for watching, and remember, if you want to support this series directly, you can click the join button to become a channel member. Doing so will get your name in the credits, as well as loyalty badges and emotes to use in the comments. If you don't see the join button, it means the video is being copyright claimed, but you can still join from the channel page on desktop. You can also link your account to our Discord to get a special role on there that'll give you access to the Senate House and a few other perks.